The deviled eggs almost slipped from my hands when I saw her step onto my parents' lawn. Red dress, gold heels clicking against the stone pathway, and Warren's hand resting on the small of her back, like it belonged there. My breath caught in my throat. The chatter around the buffet table faded into a dull hum as every eye turned toward them. My mother's smile froze mid-conversation with Aunt Patricia. My brother Daniel dropped his plastic fork onto his plate with a sharp clatter that seemed to echo across the yard. Warren cleared his throat, his voice carrying that false cheerfulness I'd learned to recognize over 17 years of marriage. Everyone, this is Marla. She's been helping me with some business consulting work. Thought she might enjoy meeting the family. Business consulting. The words tasted like poison in the air between us. Marla's red lips curved into a smile as she scanned the crowd, her eyes sliding past me like I was just another piece of lawn furniture. She leaned into Warren, whispering something that made him laugh. That laugh. The one I used to love. The one that now felt like broken glass in my chest. When she pressed a kiss to his cheek, right there in front of my parents, my children, everyone I'd ever called family, something inside me cracked. Not broke. Cracked. There's a difference. Broken things shatter into pieces you can't put back together. Cracked things hold their shape, even when everything inside is screaming. Warren expected a scene. I could see it in the way his shoulders tensed, the way his eyes darted to mine waiting for the explosion. He wanted me to scream, to cry, to make a fool of myself in front of everyone. Instead, I smiled. My hands trembled so badly I had to press the serving tray against my hip to keep it steady, but my lips curved upward, slowly, deliberately, like pulling a blade from its sheath. Welcome, Marla. My voice came out steadier than I expected. I hope you like peach cobbler. I made 3 pans this morning. The confusion that flickered across Warren's face was almost worth the pain tearing through my chest. Almost. Every eye at that reunion was trained on me, waiting, watching. My cousin Bella had her phone half raised like she was ready to record my breakdown for posterity. My father's face had gone red, his jaw working like he was chewing on words he couldn't spit out. But I refused to give them that satisfaction. I refused to become the hysterical wife, the scorned woman, the pitiful victim of my husband's cruelty. I adjusted the pearl necklace at my throat, the one Warren had given me on our 10th anniversary, the one I'd worn specifically for this moment, though I hadn't known it would be this moment until 30 seconds ago. I should check on the drinks, I said to no one in particular. Ice melts so fast in this heat. I turned and walked toward the house, my spine straight, my steps measured. Behind me, confused murmurs rippled through the crowd. In that walk across my parents' lawn, I made a silent vow. Warren Caldwell, you will regret this humiliation. My name is Lydia Hartwell Caldwell, though I suppose the Caldwell part has an expiration date now. I'm 42 years old, mother of 2 teenage boys, former marketing executive turned stay-at-home mom, daughter, sister, friend, and as of this moment, the wife of a man who just brought his mistress to our family reunion. That's not just a sentence I'm speaking. It's the title of the nightmare I'm living. The day everything I thought I knew dissolved like sugar in hot tea. This is the day I stopped being Warren's wife and started being his undoing. I didn't know it yet, standing in my parents' kitchen with my back pressed against the refrigerator, willing myself not to vomit into the farmhouse sink. I didn't know that in 6 months, Marla would be led away from another family gathering in handcuffs. I didn't know that Warren would lose everything he'd built, everything he'd taken for granted. All I knew in that moment was that something fundamental had shifted. The Lydia who'd spent 17 years making excuses, smoothing over problems, keeping peace at any cost had walked across that lawn and left her old self somewhere between the potato salad and the horseshoe pit. The woman standing in this kitchen, gripping the counter until her knuckles went white, was someone new. Someone Warren had created with his cruelty and his arrogance. Someone dangerous. It hadn't always been this way. That's what I kept telling myself as I ran cold water over my wrists, an old trick my mother taught me for staying calm. 17 years ago, Warren Caldwell had swept me off my feet at a corporate networking event. He was ambitious, charming, full of big dreams about the consulting firm he wanted to build. I was 25 and hungry for the life he promised, partnership, adventure, a love that would weather anything. We built our life from scratch. A modest starter home that we renovated ourselves, working side by side on weekends. Two beautiful boys, Marcus and Tyler, now 15 and 13. Birthday parties and soccer games and family movie nights where we'd argue over whether to watch action or comedy. I'd been good at being his wife. Dependable. Soft-spoken. Loyal even when loyalty cost me pieces of myself I'd never get back. When his business started demanding more time, I'd quit my marketing job to manage everything at home. When he needed to network at expensive dinners, I'd learn which fork to use and how to laugh at boring jokes. When he'd forgotten our anniversary 3 years running, I'd told myself work stress was temporary. I'd been loyal. For 6 months, Warren had been distant. Late nights at the office, weekend business trips to cities that never seemed to generate new clients. A new cologne I didn't recognize. Passwords changed on his phone and laptop. I told myself he was just stressed. Men his age went through phases, didn't they? Midlife adjustments. The boys would be off to college soon. Maybe he was processing that change. Turns out, he was busy falling in love with someone else. The first crack appeared 3 months ago, though I didn't recognize it for what it was at the time. Warren had come home late from another business dinner, smelling like expensive wine and perfume that definitely wasn't mine. I was loading the dishwasher when he walked up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist the way he used to in our early years. "I love you, Sylvia," he murmured into my hair. My hand stilled on the plate I was rinsing. "What did you call me?" He'd frozen, then laughed, too loud and too long. "Lydia." Obviously. God, I'm tired. What did I say? "Sylvia, you're hearing things." He'd released me, already moving toward the stairs. I said, "Lydia, you're being paranoid." But I wasn't paranoid, and his slip had planted a seed that grew roots in my chest, wrapping around my lungs until some days I could barely breathe. 2 weeks later, I found a lipstick stain on his travel mug, a deep burgundy shade I'd never worn. I prefer nudes and soft pinks. This was bold, confident, the kind of color a woman wears when she wants to be noticed. I'd stared at that stain for 15 minutes, standing in our laundry room with his dirty shirt in my hands. Then I'd washed it out and said nothing, because I wanted proof, not suspicions. I wanted evidence, not gaslit explanations about how I was imagining things or being insecure. So I stayed quiet. I watched. I waited. And I started keeping track. When my mother called about the annual Hartwell family reunion, I'd been excited for the first time in months. Something normal. Something that belonged to me, separate from Warren's world. "Tell Warren we're doing it at the house this year," Mom had said. 4th of July weekend. The whole family. I'm making my famous ribs. I'd mentioned it to Warren that evening over dinner. He'd barely looked up from his phone, pushing chicken around his plate with his fork. "Sure, I'll come," he said, his tone flat. "Might even bring someone along." I'd laughed. Actually laughed. "Bring someone? Who?" "One of your golf buddies." He shrugged, still not meeting my eyes. "Just someone who might enjoy it." I thought he was joking, making one of those awkward attempts at humor he'd been trying lately, like he was testing different personalities to see which one fit. He wasn't joking. 3 days before the reunion, he'd casually mentioned Marla would be joining us. "She's new to town," he'd said, adjusting his tie in the bedroom mirror. "Doesn't know many people yet. Thought it would be nice to include her." To our family reunion? I'd stared at his reflection. "Warren, that's odd. You barely know her." "I know her well enough." Something in his tone made my stomach drop. "She's been invaluable to the business. It's the least I can do." I should have fought harder. Should have said no. But part of me needed to see what game he was playing. Part of me needed proof. I got it. Back at the reunion, I could hear the whispers starting as I stood in the kitchen, willing my heart to stop racing. Through the window, I watched Warren and Marla work the crowd. She had her hand on his arm now, laughing at something my Uncle Theodore was saying. Warren's face glowed with pride, like he was showing off a prize he'd won. My cousin Bella appeared in the doorway, her face tight with barely contained fury. "Lydia, what the hell is happening out there? Who is that woman?" "Business associate, apparently." I kept my voice light, almost breezy. Warren wanted to include her. Include her. Bella's voice rose. He's parading her around like she's his date. In front of your whole family. Is he having a breakdown? Did he hit his head? I wanted to tell her everything. Every suspicion, every small betrayal. Every night I'd lain awake wondering if I was crazy. But the words stuck in my throat like stones. I need you to trust me, I said instead. Can you do that? Bella studied my face, her eyes narrowing. She'd known me since we were kids sharing secrets in blanket forts. She could read me better than almost anyone. What are you planning? She asked quietly. Nothing yet. I straightened my shoulders and picked up a pitcher of sweet tea. But when I do, I'll need witnesses. Bella's expression shifted from concern to something harder. We've got your back. All of us. I nodded and headed back outside, plastering that same calm smile on my face. My mother's eyes found mine across the lawn as I refilled cups at the drink table. She didn't say anything, but her slight nod spoke volumes. Hold your head high, it said. We're watching. Dinner should have been my favorite part. Mom's ribs, Dad's grilled corn, Aunt Patricia's potato salad that everyone fought over. But I could barely taste any of it. I sat at the long picnic table with my boys on either side of me, watching Warren and Marla sit directly across from us. Marcus, my 15-year-old, kept glancing between his father and the strange woman, confusion and something darker clouding his face. Dad, who is that lady? Tyler asked, his voice carrying in a sudden lull in conversation. Warren's smile didn't reach his eyes. I told you, bud. She's a work friend. Be polite. But why is she at Grandma's reunion? Marcus's tone had an edge I'd never heard before. She's not family. Marcus. Warren's voice held a warning. I said be polite. I placed my hand on Marcus's knee under the table, squeezing gently. Not now, I tried to communicate. Not yet. Halfway through the meal, Warren stood up with his beer bottle in hand. My stomach dropped. I'd like to make a toast, he announced, his voice carrying across both tables. Conversations died. Forks froze halfway to mouths. My father's face went from red to purple. Warren raised his bottle higher, his other arm sliding around Marla's shoulders. To family, he said, looking directly at me. And to new beginnings. The gasps were audible. Someone's glass actually shattered on the ground. Bella's husband muttered something under his breath that sounded like curse words. I stood up slowly, carefully placing my napkin beside my plate. Excuse me, I said to no one in particular. I need to check on dessert. I walked away before anyone could see the tears threatening to spill over, before my carefully constructed composure cracked wide open in front of everyone. Behind me, I heard my mother's voice cut through the stunned silence like a knife. Warren Caldwell, what on earth do you think you're doing? I didn't stay to hear his answer. The kitchen was blessedly empty. I gripped the edge of the sink, gulping air like I'd been underwater too long. How could he do this? Here, in front of my parents, my children, everyone I'd ever cared about? The answer was simple and devastating. He could do it because he didn't respect me anymore. Maybe he never had. My phone sat on the counter where I'd left it. I grabbed it with shaking hands, opened the voice memo app, and hit record. It's July 4th, I whispered, my voice raw. 6:37 p.m. Warren brought his mistress to my family reunion. He toasted new beginnings with his arm around her, in front of our sons. In front of my parents. I paused, steadying my breath. He thinks I'll stay quiet. He thinks I'll just take this because I always have. Because I'm dependable Lydia who never makes waves, who always keeps the peace. Another pause. Longer this time. He's wrong. I stopped the recording and saved it with a date stamp. Then I opened my phone's browser and searched for something I'd been avoiding for weeks. Private investigators near me. Divorce attorneys specializing in infidelity. How to protect assets in a marriage dissolution. I bookmarked everything. Made notes. Started building the foundation of what came next. Through the window, I could see Warren and Marla standing by the horseshoe pit, his hand on her waist. Casual. Comfortable. Like they'd done this 1,000 times before. I pulled up my banking app and started taking screenshots. Every joint account. Every credit card. Every investment statement. My fingers moved mechanically, driven by a cold clarity that felt almost like calm. Tomorrow, I would open my own account. somewhere he had no access. Tomorrow, I would start building my exit strategy. But tonight, I would smile and serve peach cobbler and play the role he expected me to play. Because the best revenge isn't loud. It's patient. That night, after everyone had left and awkward goodbyes had been exchanged, Warren came home still riding high on whatever adrenaline or delusion had powered him through the day. The boys had gone to their rooms without speaking to their father, their disappointment hanging in the air like smoke. I was in our bedroom, changing into pajamas when Warren strolled in, loosening his tie. "Well, that was dramatic," he said, like we just survived a minor inconvenience at a restaurant. "Your family really knows how to overreact." I turned slowly to face him. "Overreact? Come on, Lydia." He rolled his eyes. "You barely spoke all evening. Everyone saw how cold you were being. How unwelcoming. Marla was trying to be friendly and you just shut down." The audacity stole my breath for a moment. "I shut down. You embarrassed yourself." He sat on the edge of our bed, pulling off his shoes, acting like a jealous teenager instead of trusting that I can have professional relationships. Professional. The word tasted like acid. I walked to the dresser and began removing my jewelry, meeting his eyes in the mirror. "No, Warren. Everyone saw you. They saw exactly what you wanted them to see." Something flickered in his expression. Uncertainty, maybe. Or the first tiny seed of concern that I wasn't reacting the way he'd planned. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you brought another woman to my family reunion." I kept my voice level, each word carefully measured. "You put your arm around her. You toasted new beginnings. You humiliated me in front of my parents and our children. You're being dramatic." But his voice had lost some of its confidence. "Marla is a colleague. That's all." "Of course." I turned to face him fully. "And I'm sure all your colleagues get invited to family events. I'm sure you put your hands on all of them the way you did today." Warren stood up, his jaw tightening. "I don't have to explain myself to you. If you have a problem with my business relationships, that sounds like your insecurity, not my issue." I smiled then. Not the fake smile from earlier. A real one. Small and cold and absolutely genuine. "You're right," I said softly. "You don't have to explain yourself. But don't mistake my silence for acceptance, Warren. Those are very different things." He stared at me, trying to read my expression, trying to find the cracks to exploit. But I'd gotten good at hiding them. Finally, he shook his head and grabbed his pillow. "I'm sleeping in the guest room. I can't deal with this tonight." "Good idea," I agreed. "You should get used to sleeping alone." He left without another word, and I sat on the edge of our bed, pulling up the contacts I'd saved earlier. The private investigator, the attorney, the financial advisor who specialized in protecting assets during divorce. Tomorrow I would make the calls. Tonight, I would start gathering evidence. The private investigator's name was Simone Torres. She came recommended by Bella's friend who'd caught her own husband cheating 2 years ago. I met Simone 3 days after the reunion at a coffee shop 2 towns over, where no one would recognize me. She was younger than I expected, maybe mid-30s, with sharp eyes that seemed to catalog everything about me in the first 10 seconds. "Tell me what you need," she said, sliding a folder across the table toward me. I explained everything. The distance, the late nights, the strange woman at the reunion, the name slip, the lipstick stain. Simone took notes without judgment, her pen moving steadily across her legal pad. "Your husband, does he have access to business accounts? Company funds?" "He owns his own consulting firm," I said. "He's the primary account holder on everything." "Why?" "Because in my experience, men who flaunt their affairs this publicly usually have other secrets." She tapped her pen against the pad. "Financial ones. Want me to look into that too?" I hesitated. Going after Warren's business dealings felt like crossing a line I couldn't uncross. Then I remembered Marla's hand on his arm. His toast to new beginnings. The way my sons' faces had crumpled when they realized what was happening. "Yes," I said. "Look into everything." Simone pulled out a contract and a tablet with photos pulled up. "I took these this morning. Is this your husband?" I looked at the screen. Warren and Marla outside a downtown hotel. Her hand on his chest. His fingers tucking her hair behind her ear. My stomach turned to ice. "Yes, that's him. And this is the woman from the reunion?" Yes, Marla. I forced myself to keep looking. Do you know her full name? Marla Keene. Simone swiped to another photo. 34 years old. Originally from Nevada. Moved here 8 months ago. 8 months. The same time Warren started acting differently. Simone swiped again. This time, the image was a mugshot. Marla, looking younger but unmistakable, staring blankly at the camera. What's that? Arrest record from 6 years ago. Fraud charges. She ran a scheme targeting small business owners, convinced them to invest in fake consulting projects. Simone's expression was grim. The charges were dropped as part of a settlement, but the pattern is there. She finds men with money and access, builds trust, then finds creative ways to redirect funds. My hand started shaking. Warren's consulting firm. He's been letting her handle some of the client relationship management. He said she was brilliant at it. I'm sure she is. Simone closed the tablet. I need you to give me access to his business accounts. Just the login information. I have a forensic accountant I work with who can trace any irregularities. That's illegal, isn't it? It's a gray area. Simone met my eyes steadily. But if she's stealing from his company, and that company's assets are partly yours since you're married, you have a right to know. Your call. I thought about my boys, about the college funds Warren and I had built together, about the retirement account I'd sacrificed my career to help him build. I'll get you the information, I said. Getting Warren's login credentials was easier than I expected. He'd grown careless over the months, comfortable in his assumption that I was too trusting or too stupid to check up on him. I waited until he was in the shower one morning, then picked up his laptop from the kitchen counter where he'd left it charging. His password was the same one he'd used for years, Marcus and Tyler's birthdays combined. I logged into his business email first. Dozens of exchanges between him and Marla, most of them coded in language that tried to sound professional but reeked of intimacy. References to dinner plans, inside jokes, pet names hidden in the formal business speak. Then I found the financial folder. Transfers I didn't understand. Payments to vendors I'd never heard of. Consulting fees paid to companies that, when I searched them, didn't seem to exist. My hands trembled as I forwarded everything to a dummy email account I'd created. Every suspicious transaction, every questionable payment, every piece of evidence that something was very, very wrong. The water in the bathroom shut off. I closed the laptop and set it back exactly where I'd found it, my heart hammering against my ribs. Warren emerged 10 minutes later, already dressed for work. He grabbed his laptop without looking at me, dropped a distracted kiss on my forehead, and headed out the door. "Love you," he called back, the words automatic and empty. I didn't respond, just watched him leave, knowing that I'd just taken the first real step toward destroying everything we'd built together. That afternoon, I met Simone again. She brought her forensic accountant, a stern woman named Patricia, who examined my forwarded emails with the intensity of someone reading a thriller novel. "This is good," Patricia said after 30 minutes of silence. "Really good. Or really bad, depending on your perspective." "Bad how?" She turned her laptop toward me, showing a spreadsheet I couldn't fully understand. "These payments here, they're going to shell companies, all registered to the same person." She clicked to another screen. "Marla Keene." The room tilted slightly. "How much?" "So far, I've traced about $83,000 over the past 6 months." Patricia's expression was grave. "If the pattern holds, I'd estimate she siphoned close to $120,000 total." "From Warren's business?" "From the business accounts, yes. Which means from you too, since you're married. This isn't just an affair, Mrs. Caldwell. This is fraud, and your husband has either been complicit or catastrophically stupid." I thought about Warren's new watch, the expensive dinners he claimed were client meetings, the weekend trip to Napa he'd taken alone last month. "He knows," I said quietly. "Maybe not the extent of it, but he knows." Simone leaned forward. "Here's what I'm thinking. We gather everything we can over the next few months, build an airtight case, then we decide what to do with it." "Decide?" I looked between them. "We go to the police, don't we?" "Eventually." Simone's smile was sharp. "But timing is everything. If you want maximum impact, We wait for the perfect moment. I thought about that toast, about Marla's red dress, about the way Warren had humiliated me in front of everyone I loved. When's the next Hartwell family reunion? I asked. Simone's smile widened. I like the way you think. The next 3 months were the longest performance of my life. Every day, I woke up and played the role of the oblivious wife. I made Warren's coffee, packed his lunches, asked about his day with genuine seeming interest. He grew more confident in his deception, more careless with his lies. He stopped even trying to hide his phone, started taking calls from Marla in front of me, speaking to her with an intimacy that should have belonged to me. I love you too, he said one evening, standing in our kitchen while I chopped vegetables for dinner. I'll see you tomorrow. He hung up and smiled at me like nothing had happened. That was a client, really demanding one. I'm sure, I said, not looking up from the cutting board. The boys noticed the change in me before Warren did. Marcus started asking if I was okay. Tyler watched me with worried eyes during family dinners that grew increasingly silent. Mom, are you and Dad fighting? Marcus asked one night, finding me alone in the kitchen after midnight. I wanted to tell him everything, but he was 15. He didn't need to carry this burden yet. Your father and I are going through some changes, I said carefully. But you and Tyler are safe. That's what matters. Is he cheating on you? The bluntness of the question took my breath away. With that weird lady from the reunion? Marcus, I'm not stupid, Mom. I can see what's happening. His voice cracked. Why are you pretending like everything's fine? I pulled him into a hug, feeling his tears soak into my shoulder. Because sometimes, sweetheart, you have to be patient to make things right. Trust me. Please. He pulled back, searching my face. You're planning something, aren't you? I managed a small smile. I'm protecting us. That's all you need to know. Meanwhile, Simone's investigation deepened. She tracked Marla's movements, documented every hotel visit, every suspicious transaction, every piece of evidence that painted a picture of systematic fraud. She's done this before, Simone told me during one of our weekly meetings. Not just the Nevada case. I found 2 other men in Texas and Oregon who lost significant amounts of money to her schemes. Neither pressed charges because she convinced them it would damage their businesses and marriages. She's a professional, I said numbly. She's a predator. Simone's voice was hard. And your husband made himself an easy target. The financial picture grew clearer and more devastating. $147,000 traced to shell companies Marla controlled. Business deals that existed only on paper. Client payments that never reached Warren's actual business accounts. He has to know. Patricia insisted during one of our meetings. No one is this blind to their own finances. But I wasn't sure. Warren had always been the idea man, the relationship builder. I'd handled our personal finances for years. Maybe he'd been just as careless with his business accounts. Or maybe he'd chosen not to see what he didn't want to know. My brother Daniel was the first person in my family I told the full truth. I needed a lawyer, and I needed someone I could trust, absolutely. We met at his office on a Wednesday afternoon. I spread the evidence across his conference table like a poker hand. Photographs, financial statements, email transcripts, Simone's investigative report. Daniel studied everything in silence, his lawyer face firmly in place. When he finally looked up, his eyes were furious. He brought her to Mom and Dad's reunion knowing all of this? I don't think he knows the full extent of the fraud, I admitted. But he knows enough. And you've been living with him? Pretending everything's normal. Daniel stood up, pacing to the window. Lydia, this is insane. You should have come to me months ago. I needed proof. Real, undeniable proof. I gathered the papers back into their folder. And I needed a plan. What kind of plan? I told him about my idea. About waiting for the next reunion, scheduled for Thanksgiving. About timing everything perfectly for maximum impact and maximum witnesses. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. You're planning revenge. I'm planning justice. I met his eyes steadily. There's a difference. Is there? But something in his expression shifted. What do you need from me? Legal representation. For the divorce and for whatever comes after. I paused. And I need you to be there. At Thanksgiving. With the evidence. With whatever legal backup we might need. Daniel studied my face, probably seeing the determination I felt bone deep. You're sure about this? Once you pull this trigger, there's no going back. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. He nodded slowly. Then let's make sure we do this right. I'll start preparing the divorce paperwork. And I'll contact a friend at the prosecutor's office. If Marla's been committing fraud, she needs to face actual consequences. Not yet, I said quickly. We wait until Thanksgiving. Until everyone can see exactly who Warren chose over his family. You want witnesses. I want him to feel what I felt at that reunion. Exposed, humiliated, helpless. My voice hardened. I want him to know what it cost to betray the people who loved you. Daniel came around the table and hugged me tightly. I'm proud of you, Lydia, for being strong enough to do this. I'm not strong, I whispered against his shoulder. I'm just done being weak. 6 weeks before Thanksgiving, I made my move with Warren. Not the final move, just a small one. Bait to set the hook deeper. Mom's planning something big for Thanksgiving this year, I told him over dinner. She wants to honor you, celebrate your business success. Warren looked up from his phone, surprised. Really? Really? She feels bad about how tense the July reunion was. The lies came easier than I expected. She wants to make amends, do a proper celebration. His chest puffed slightly with pride. It was almost sad how predictable he'd become. Finally, some recognition. She's inviting everyone, including some of your business associates. I kept my voice light. She thought it would be nice to mix family and professional recognition. That's actually... He smiled genuinely for the first time in months. That's really great. Tell her I appreciate it. I will. I stood to clear the plates. You should probably let Marla know she's invited too. Mom specifically mentioned her. Warren's smile faltered just slightly. Are you okay with that? I turned to face him, letting confusion color my expression. Why wouldn't I be? She's your business partner, right? Seems appropriate. He studied me, trying to figure out if I was being genuine or setting a trap. But I'd gotten too good at hiding my thoughts. Right, he said slowly. I'll let her know. That night, I lay in our bed. He'd moved back into the bedroom after a week, apparently deciding I'd accepted his new reality and listened to him snore beside me. My phone glowed with a text from Simone. Hook set? I typed back, swimming right toward it. The next morning, I started preparing. Not food, not decorations, evidence, organization, strategy. I created a timeline of every transaction, every lie, every piece of proof that would destroy Warren's life as thoroughly as he destroyed mine. Bella helped me coordinate with the family. Daniel handled the legal aspects. Simone worked with her prosecutor contact to ensure everything would be admissible in court. We're building 2 cases, Daniel explained during one of our planning sessions. Civil and criminal. The divorce gives you financial protection. The fraud charges give Marla actual consequences. And Warren? Daniel's expression was grim. Depends how complicit he's been. But at minimum, his business reputation will be destroyed. No one will want to work with someone who either committed fraud or was too stupid to notice $150,000 disappearing. $150,000. The number had grown as Patricia dug deeper. It wasn't just company funds anymore. Marla had somehow gained access to Warren's personal investment accounts, the ones he built during our marriage, the ones that should have been protecting our future. She's a professional, I said again, almost admiringly. She knew exactly how to play him. Does that make you feel better? Bella asked quietly. Knowing he was manipulated? I considered the question honestly. No, because he chose to be vulnerable to manipulation. He chose to break our vows, to risk our family, to humiliate me. The fraud might not be entirely his fault, but the betrayal is. The invitations went out 6 weeks before Thanksgiving. Elegant cards on cream cardstock, my mother's perfect script announcing a celebration of family and Warren's professional achievements. I personally delivered Marla's invitation to Warren's office, a calculated risk, but I needed to see her reaction. She was there when I arrived, sitting in Warren's office like she belonged there, her feet tucked under her on his leather chair. The intimacy of the scene was a knife to my chest, but I kept smiling. Lydia. Warren stood up quickly, guilt flashing across his face. What are you doing here? bringing the invitations. I held up the envelope. Mom wanted to make sure you both got them in person. She's very excited about the celebration. Marla uncurled from the chair, taking the invitation from my hand. Her smile was all sharp teeth and false warmth. How sweet. Your mother is so generous. She is. I met her eyes directly. She believes in celebrating people's achievements and in making sure everyone sees exactly what they've accomplished. Something flickered in Marla's expression. Uncertainty 16 continued. Something flickered in Marla's expression. Uncertainty, maybe. Or the first whisper of suspicion that she couldn't quite name. Well, we're honored, Warren said quickly, moving between us like a referee. Tell your mom thank you. We'll definitely be there. Wonderful. I turned to leave, then paused at the door. Oh, Marla? Mom mentioned she's inviting some of Warren's biggest clients. The Hendersons, the Yao family, the Mercers. She thought it would be nice for them to see the woman who's been so instrumental to Warren's success. Marla's smile tightened, almost imperceptibly. That's very thoughtful, isn't it? I gave them both a warm smile. See you at Thanksgiving. I drove home with my hands shaking on the steering wheel, pulling over twice because my vision blurred with tears. Seeing them together in his office, her in his chair, the casual intimacy of it. It still had the power to shred me. But I'd done what I needed to do. I'd dangled the bait, and they'd taken it without question. Simone called an hour later. You sure you want to do this? Once we involve the clients, there's no containing it. I'm sure, I said. Warren built his reputation on being trustworthy. Let's see how that holds up when everyone finds out he let his mistress steal from his own company. Your mother knows what's coming. She knows enough. Daniel briefed her and Dad last week. I paused. They wanted to confront Warren immediately. I convinced them to wait. And your boys. That was the hardest part. I'll tell them the day before. They deserve to know what's happening and why. This is going to get ugly, Lydia. It already is ugly, I said quietly. I'm just making sure everyone can see it clearly. Thanksgiving morning arrived cold and bright. I woke before dawn, my stomach churning with anxiety and adrenaline. Warren was still asleep beside me, peaceful and oblivious. I showered and dressed carefully. Nothing too formal. Nothing that screamed, I'm about to destroy your life. Just a simple navy dress and the pearl earrings my grandmother had left me. Armor disguised as normalcy. The boys were quiet at breakfast. I'd told them the truth the night before, sitting in Marcus's room with both of them staring at me like I'd announced the world was ending. Dad's been cheating. Tyler's voice had been small, younger than 13. With that lady from the summer? Yes, sweetheart. With Marla. And stealing. Marcus's face had gone hard, older than 15. He let her steal from his company. We don't know how much he knew, I'd said carefully. But yes, she's taken a lot of money. What's going to happen? Tyler asked. I looked at both of them, my beautiful boys who deserve so much better than this. Today, at Grandma's, we're going to show everyone the truth. There are going to be police officers there. Marla is going to be arrested. And your father... I'd swallowed hard. Your father is going to face consequences for his choices. Marcus had been angry. Tyler had cried. But both of them had understood why I'd waited, why I'd planned, why exposure needed to happen publicly. Will we have to live with Dad? Tyler had asked. No, baby. You'll stay with me. Always. Now, watching Warren eat his toast and scroll through his phone, completely unaware of what was coming, I felt almost sorry for him. Almost. Big day, he said, flashing me that charming smile that had won me over 17 years ago. Your mom really went all out with the guest list. She did. I sipped my coffee. Should be memorable. Marla's excited. She's never been to a real family Thanksgiving before. The casual way he said her name, like it belonged in our home, in our lives, made something cold settle in my chest. I hope she enjoys it, I said softly. I have a feeling it's going to be her last one for a while. Warren didn't catch the double meaning. He was already thinking about his triumphal arrival, imagining the praise and recognition he thought was coming. We arrived at my parents' house at 2 p.m. Cars already lined the street. Family, yes, but also several vehicles I recognized from Warren's business functions. His clients, invited under the guise of professional celebration. Daniel met us at the door, his lawyer face firmly in place. Warren, Lydia, boys, come in. Inside, the house was transformed. Mom had gone all out, just as I'd asked her to. A banner across the living room proclaimed, "Celebrating Warren Caldwell." Photos of Warren throughout the years lined the walls. Our wedding, the boys' births, family vacations from better times. Warren beamed, soaking in the attention. This is incredible. I had no idea she was planning all this. Wait until you see what's coming, Daniel said, his tone carefully neutral. Marla arrived 20 minutes later in another red dress. This one even more attention-grabbing than the one from July. She walked in on Warren's arm like she owned the place, like she hadn't stolen from him and from me. My mother greeted her with cold politeness. My father couldn't even look at her. But Marla seemed oblivious, or maybe just confident enough not to care. The afternoon crawled by. Appetizers and small talk and forced smiles. Warren's clients mingled with family, the lines between professional and personal deliberately blurred. I played hostess, refilling drinks and making introductions, all while watching the clock tick toward the moment everything would explode. At 4 p.m., Daniel caught my eye across the room. It was time. Can I have everyone's attention? I moved to the center of the living room, my heart hammering so hard I was sure everyone could hear it. Before we start dinner, I wanted to take a moment to properly honor Warren. Warren's smile was blinding. He moved to stand beside me, and I had to force myself not to step away. 17 years ago, I married a man I thought I knew. I began, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. A man who promised to be my partner, my equal, my best friend. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Warren's chest puffed with pride. I worked hard to support his dreams. When his business was just an idea, I believed in it. When he needed capital, I helped provide it. When he needed more time to focus on growing his company, I gave up my career to manage everything else. Warren's smile started to falter. Something in my tone was wrong, though he couldn't quite place it yet. So today, I think it's important that everyone sees exactly what Warren has accomplished. I pulled out a small remote. Daniel, could you get the lights? The room dimmed. A projector screen descended from the ceiling. Daniel had installed it that morning. The first image appeared. Warren and Marla, caught by Simone's camera outside a downtown hotel, his hand cupping her face as she smiled up at him. Gasps erupted. Warren went pale. Lydia, what is this? The truth, I said simply. Let's keep going. Click. Another photo. Marla leaving Warren's condo at 6 a.m. The one he told me he used for late nights at the office. Click. Bank statements showing transfers to shell companies. Click. Corporate documents with Marla's signature, moving funds that didn't belong to her. Click. Her arrest record from Nevada, the fraud charges in stark black and white. Stop it. Warren lunged for the projector, but Daniel stepped in front of him. Behind Daniel, I noticed 2 uniformed police officers who'd been waiting in the kitchen. They moved into the room with calm authority. Over the past 8 months, I continued, my voice growing stronger, Warren's business partner Marla Keene has systematically stolen approximately $153,000 from his company accounts. Money from client payments, money from investments, money that belonged to Warren's business and, by extension, to our marital assets. The clients Warren had worked so hard to impress were already pulling out their phones, their faces dark with betrayal and fury. Lydia, please, Warren's voice cracked. Can we talk about this privately? Like you brought Marla here privately? Like you humiliated me privately at the July reunion? I shook my head. No, Warren. We're doing this exactly as publicly as you've been conducting your affair. Marla had gone very still, her eyes darting toward the exits. But more police officers stood there now, blocking her escape. One of the officers stepped forward, pulling out handcuffs. Marla Keene. That's not my name, she said quickly, her voice taking on a desperate edge. I'm Marla Sanders. There's been a mistake. Marla Keene, also known as Marla Sanders, also known as Sylvia Keene, the officer continued, unmoved by her protest. You're under arrest for fraud, identity theft, and embezzlement. This is insane. Marla's mask finally cracked, revealing the calculating predator beneath. I haven't done anything wrong. This is all a misunderstanding. The officer began reading her rights as his partner moved to place the handcuffs. Marla jerked away, looking wildly at Warren. Tell them. Tell them I was just helping with the business. You authorized everything. Warren's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. The room had gone deathly quiet except for the officer's steady recitation of Miranda rights. Did you authorize Ms. Keene to transfer company funds to offshore accounts? Daniel asked Warren directly. Did you authorize her to forge client signatures? Did you give her permission to set up shell companies using your business licenses? Aye, she said. Warren's voice was barely a whisper. She said it was for tax purposes, for business development. Then you'll need to come down to the station as well, the second officer said. We have questions about your involvement. The handcuffs clicked into place around Marla's wrists. She jerked against them, her red dress suddenly looking garish instead of glamorous. You can't do this. I have rights. Yes, you do, the first officer agreed. And we just read them to you. Let's go. They led her toward the door. She twisted to look back at Warren one last time. You promised you'd take care of me. You said we'd be together. I never promised that, Warren said weakly, but no one believed him. Least of all me. As Marla was guided outside, I could see neighbors gathering on the lawn, phones out, recording everything. By tonight, this would be all over town. By tomorrow, it would probably hit the local news. Warren stood frozen in the center of the living room, surrounded by shocked family members and furious clients. His perfect image, his carefully constructed success story, was crumbling in real time. Mr. Caldwell, one of his biggest clients, Helen Henderson, stepped forward. I paid your company $40,000 for consulting services 3 months ago. According to what I just saw, that money went into one of Miss Keene's accounts. I'll fix it, Warren stammered. I'll make it right. I didn't know. You didn't know your business partner was stealing. Another client, Marcus Yao, shook his head in disgust. Either you're a thief or you're incompetent. Either way, we're done. I'll be contacting my lawyer. One by one, the clients filed out, their expressions ranging from fury to disappointment. Warren's professional reputation, the one thing he'd valued above everything else, above me, above our boys, above basic decency, was being destroyed with each exit. After the clients left, only family remained. The silence was suffocating. My mother finally spoke, her voice shaking with rage. How could you, Warren? How could you bring that woman here? Parade her in front of your wife, your children? I didn't know she was stealing, Warren said again, the only defense he seemed capable of mounting. You have to believe me. But you knew you were cheating, my father said, his voice deadly quiet. You knew you were betraying Lydia. You knew you were humiliating her in front of us. Warren turned to me, his eyes desperate. Lydia, I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. This got out of hand. I never meant for any of this to happen. You never meant to get caught, I corrected. There's a difference. We can fix this. Marriage, counseling, therapy, whatever you need. He reached for my hand, but I stepped back. Please, I'll end things with Marla. I'll do whatever it takes. Marla just got arrested, Warren. I think things are pretty definitively ended. Then we can start over. Just us, like it used to be. I looked at this man I'd spent 17 years loving, supporting, believing in. And I felt nothing but a vast emptiness where that love used to live. No, I said simply. We can't. Mom. Tyler's voice was small from the doorway. He and Marcus had been upstairs during the arrest, spared from watching their father's complete humiliation. Now they stood side by side, their faces matching masks of hurt and confusion. Warren moved toward them. Boys, I can explain. Don't. Marcus held up his hand, stopping his father mid-step. Just don't, Dad. We heard everything. We saw the pictures. It's complicated. Adult relationships are complicated. Cheating isn't complicated, Marcus said, his voice hard. It's just wrong. And letting someone steal from your business? That's just stupid. Marcus, that's enough, my mother said gently, but I could hear the approval in her tone. Warren's face crumpled. I'm still your father. That doesn't change. No, Tyler said quietly, but everything else does. The boys walked past their father without another word, moving to stand beside me. Tyler took my hand. Marcus put his arm around my shoulders. And in that moment, I knew that whatever else happened, we would be okay. The police didn't arrest Warren that night, but they did take him in for questioning. He left my parents' house in the back of a squad car, his head down, avoiding the phone still recording from the sidewalk. I watched him go with no satisfaction, no triumph, just a bone-deep weariness. "You did the right thing," Daniel said, standing beside me on the porch. "I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but you did. I destroyed him. He destroyed himself. You just made sure people saw it clearly." Inside, my mother was serving pie to anyone who could stomach eating. Most of the family had left, unable to handle the emotional whiplash from celebration to devastation. But Bella remained, and Aunt Patricia, and a few cousins who'd appointed themselves my protection detail. "What happens now?" Bella asked as I sat at the kitchen table, accepting a cup of tea I didn't want. "Now we wait for the legal process to play out." I wrapped my hands around the warm mug. "Marla will be charged with fraud and embezzlement at minimum. Warren will be investigated for complicity, and I'll file for divorce." "He'll fight it," Aunt Patricia predicted. "Men like him always do." "Let him fight." Daniel pulled out a folder. "We have documentation of everything. The affair, the financial misconduct, his complete disregard for his family's well-being. No judge is going to look kindly on him." My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I opened it hesitantly. "You'll regret this. I'll make sure everyone knows what a vindictive bitch you are." "It's from Marla," I said, showing Daniel. "From jail, apparently. Forward that to me immediately." That's witness intimidation. He was already pulling out his own phone. This woman is making my job so easy it's almost boring. Over the next few days, the fallout accelerated. Warren's business imploded as more clients realized their money had disappeared into Marla's shell companies. His professional network dropped him. His friends stopped returning calls. The local news picked up the story. Local businessman's affair leads to fraud charges. The article detailed the arrest at the family gathering, painting Warren as either a criminal mastermind or an incompetent fool. Neither interpretation was flattering. Warren's lawyer called me 3 times. I didn't answer. He could talk to Daniel. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, Warren showed up at the house I'd moved into with the boys. A small rental across town, far from the home we'd shared, paid for with money from my new account that he couldn't touch. I opened the door to find him standing on the porch, looking like he'd aged 10 years. His clothes were wrinkled. He hadn't shaved. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice rough. "Please, Lydia." 5 minutes. Against my better judgment, I stepped onto the porch, leaving the door open behind me. 5 minutes. "I'm sorry. I know I've said it before, but I need you to hear it again." "I'm so sorry." His voice cracked. "I was stupid. I was arrogant. I took you for granted and I ruined everything." "Yes, you did. The business is gone. I'm probably going to be charged as an accessory to Marla's fraud. My reputation is destroyed." He laughed bitterly. "Everything I worked for is gone. How does that make you feel?" I kept my voice neutral, clinical. "Losing everything you built? Like I'm dying." He met my eyes. "Like nothing matters anymore. Now you know how I felt. At your reunion. When you put your arm around her and toasted new beginnings while I stood there holding deviled eggs and trying not to cry." Warren flinched like I'd struck him. I was cruel. I was trying to... I don't even know what I was trying to do. Prove I was still young? Still desirable? It was pathetic. It was... But Marla manipulated me too. You have to see that. She knew exactly what buttons to push, what to say, how to make me feel important. I studied his face, looking for genuine remorse beneath the self-pity. Did she force you to sleep with her? Did she force you to lie to me? Did she force you to bring her to my family reunion? No, but... Then stop making excuses. I crossed my arms. You made choices, Warren. Bad ones. Selfish ones. The fraud might be mostly on her, but the betrayal is entirely on you. I know. His shoulders sagged. I know. And I'll regret it for the rest of my life. But is there any chance, any possibility, that we could try to fix this? For the boys. The boys are fine. Better, actually. They don't have to watch their father parade his mistress around anymore. They need their father. They need a father who respects their mother, who honors his commitments, who doesn't risk his family's financial security for an affair. I took a step back toward the door. You're not that person, Warren. Maybe you never were. Please, Lydia, don't throw away 17 years. You already did that. I'm just doing the paperwork. I opened the door. Your 5 minutes are up. My lawyer will be in touch about custody arrangements. Until then, stay away from this house. Lydia. Goodbye, Warren. I closed the door and locked it, leaning my forehead against the cool wood as I heard his footsteps retreat down the walkway. It should have felt like victory. It felt like exhaustion. Marla's trial began in February. I attended every day, sitting in the back of the courtroom with Daniel beside me. She'd changed in jail. The red dress and gold heels had been replaced by an orange jumpsuit. The confident mask had cracked to reveal desperation underneath. But she was still beautiful, still attempting to charm everyone around her. It didn't work. The prosecution presented mountains of evidence. Simone testified about her investigation. Patricia, the forensic accountant, walked the jury through every fraudulent transaction. Warren's clients testified about stolen money and forged documents. And I testified about the affair, about Warren's increasingly suspicious behavior, about finding the evidence that started everything. Marla's lawyer tried to paint her as a victim herself, manipulated by Warren, just trying to survive in a cruel world. But the jury saw through it. They saw the pattern of fraud across multiple states, multiple men, multiple schemes. The verdict came back guilty on all counts. Marla's face crumpled as the judge read it, but she didn't cry. Just stared straight ahead, her jaw tight with rage. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, looked down at Marla with something like disgust. Ms. Keene, you've shown a complete disregard for the law and for the people you've hurt. You've systematically targeted vulnerable people, stolen their money, and destroyed their trust. I see no remorse in you, only anger at being caught. Marla's lawyer stood. Your Honor, my client has had a difficult life. Many people have difficult lives, the judge interrupted. They don't all become criminals. Ms. Keene, I sentence you to 7 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years of supervised probation. In addition, you'll be required to pay full restitution to all victims. 7 years. I watched Marla being led away in handcuffs for the second time, and this time I did feel something. Not satisfaction, exactly, but closure. Justice served with witnesses, just as I'd planned. Warren wasn't charged criminally, but the civil consequences destroyed him anyway. Multiple lawsuits from defrauded clients. His business license revoked. Bankruptcy proceedings that stripped him of almost everything he'd built. Our divorce was finalized in April. I got the house we'd built together. Full custody of the boys with supervised visitation for Warren. A significant portion of what remained of our assets after Marla's theft and Warren's legal fees. He'd shown up to the final hearing looking broken, signing the papers without even trying to negotiate. His lawyer had advised him that fighting would only make things worse, given the evidence against him. I hope you're happy, he said as we left the courthouse, his voice bitter. You got everything you wanted. I wanted a faithful husband, I replied. I wanted a partner who respected me. I wanted to grow old with someone I could trust. I shook my head. I didn't get any of that, Warren. I just got to keep the pieces after you destroyed everything. He had no response to that. I moved back into our house in May, repainting rooms, replacing furniture, removing every trace of Warren from the space. The boys helped, treating it like a fresh start instead of an ending. Marcus had started seeing a therapist. Tyler was joining the school band and making new friends. Both of them were healing, slowly but steadily. Are you okay, Mom? Marcus asked one evening as we painted his bedroom a deep blue he'd chosen. Really okay? I paused, considering the question honestly. I'm getting there. Some days are hard, but we're going to be fine. All 3 of us. Do you hate Dad? No. And I realized it was true. I hate what he did. I hate the choices he made. But hating him would just poison me. I'm choosing to let that go. That's really mature, Tyler said from his position by the window. Like, actually adult mature. I laughed. Thanks, buddy. I'll take that compliment. The next Hartwell family reunion happened in July, exactly 1 year after Warren had brought Marla into our lives and destroyed everything. I almost didn't go. The memories were too fresh, the associations too painful. But my mother called and insisted. "You didn't do anything wrong, sweetheart," she said. "Don't let his mistakes keep you from your own family." So I went, bringing the boys with me. We walked onto my parents' lawn where everything had started and ended, and I braced myself for the whispers, the pitying looks, the awkward questions. Instead, I found celebration. A banner hung across the patio, "Welcome home, Lydia." The tables were set with my favorite foods. Photos of me, just me, decorated the walls. Professional photos from my old marketing career, pictures with the boys, memories of the life I'd built. "What is this?" I asked my mother, tears already forming. "This is us honoring you," she said firmly, "for being strong, for protecting your boys, for refusing to let Warren's betrayal define you." My family surrounded me, offering hugs and words of support. Cousins who'd witnessed my humiliation now celebrated my resilience. Aunts who'd watched me smile through pain now praised my courage. Bella pulled me aside at one point, her own eyes wet. "You know what people are saying? Not about the scandal. About you." "What?" "They're saying you're the strongest person they know. That you took something horrible and turned it into justice. That you're an inspiration." The words felt too big, too generous. I just did what I had to do. "No," Bella disagreed. "You did what most people wish they were brave enough to do. You stood up for yourself. You demanded respect. And you did it with so much grace that even Warren's own family is on your side now." I thought about that first reunion, standing in the kitchen making a vow I barely understood. I thought about the months of investigation, of planning, of pretending everything was fine while building the case that would destroy Warren's world. It hadn't felt graceful. It had felt like survival. But maybe that's what grace was sometimes. Not ease, but endurance. Not peace, but persistence. Someone asked if I missed Warren. The question came from a cousin I barely knew, probably emboldened by too much wine. I looked around at my laughing family, at my boys playing horseshoes with their grandfather, at the life that had emerged from the ruins of my marriage. "No," I said honestly, "but I thank him in a strange way. Without his betrayal, I never would have learned how strong silence can be, how powerful patience is, how much I'm capable of when I stop shrinking myself to make other people comfortable." The cousin nodded, seeming satisfied with that answer. Later, as the sun set over my parents' property, I stood alone for a moment on the edge of the lawn. In my pocket, my phone buzzed with a reminder I'd set for myself. It was the voice memo from last year. The one I'd recorded in this very kitchen, shaking with rage and pain, vowing that Warren would regret his choices. I pulled it up and hit play one last time. "He thinks I'll stay quiet," my past self whispered. "He's wrong." I smiled, then deleted the file. I didn't need it anymore. Because the loudest revenge isn't destruction or humiliation, or even justice served cold at a family reunion. The loudest revenge is peace, building a new life, watching your children heal, standing in the ruins of everything you thought mattered and realizing you're still standing. That you're stronger for having survived. That you're finally, wonderfully free.